you are just a puppet. You have no heart and cannot feel any pain. How could there be any meaning in the memory of such a being? What I have shown you is reality. What you remember, that is the illusion. Only death awaits you all, but do not fear, for it's through death that a new spirit energy is born. Soon, you will live again as part of me. And that's Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII.
Okay, I'm here for it.
Like, that seemed like a very uneasy, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, a little bit.
This is Jen.
This is Becky.
And this is Too Close to Home. And this one really is too close to home. We're going to talk about a cult today. And no, not just any cult. This one is based off of Final Fantasy, not the franchise, but the particular one, 7.
Okay. Ooh, sorry. I'll go to the corner when we're done.
So let me start off the sauces real quick. DemonSushi.com, Wikipedia, Vice, TheHumanException.com, and Jimmy Davis.
The most important.
This is the most important. So I've really been focusing on true crime ethics in its recent discussion. As a true crime listener, I prefer the comedic approach, as that is my coping mechanism for all the horrible things I've read. But what
and
is that?
Horrible things have happened to me in life.
Right. Trauma. But what does that have to do with this cult? Well, part of true crime is acknowledging more than just murder qualifies for this genre. While we do talk about cryptids in history, I branched out searching for some weird true crime stories that it didn't involve DNA per se. And that's how I found about the Final Fantasy VII cult. It's a game myself I have played, albeit a long time ago, and figured, what better way to roast our nerdy husbands but by talking about one of the nerdiest games of all time. So let's get into it.
As mine is playing a nerdy game on his phone right now.
Well, I'm nerdy. I'm certainly a Final Fantasy novice, so please excuse my simplistic explanation and the terrible jokes to come. Don't come at me. Get a few things wrong.
I would like to think that people could appreciate your simplistic explanation, because when people talk about things I'm not familiar with, I like when they explain it to me and break it down Barney style so that I don't have to like stop the podcast and Google what the fuck they're talking about.
Amen. Don't act like I know it. I
don't.
Surely don't.
I surely don't.
I don't even know what day it is, okay? I surely don't know what that means. I know that their fandom is a very strong fandom. So it's like, oh, I don't want the nerds coming at me, bro. Don't tase me, bro, okay?
I'm just glad you're seeing them.
You guys feel seen? I hope you do. I could go on hours trying to explain the Final Fantasy franchise, but for your sanity and mine alone, I'll keep it as brief as possible. Final Fantasy is a long-loved Japanese science fantasy anthology franchise created by Hironobu Sakaguchi. Hey,
Good job.
I'm getting there.
I'm proud of you.
Respect. I put that respect on that Gucci.
Stupid.
The franchise centers on a series of fantasy and science fantasy role-playing video games. The first game in the series released in 1987, so it's as old as I am, with 16 numbered main entries having been released to date. The initial working title was Fighting Fantasy, with Sakaguchi and his team wanting to abbreviate it to FF and use the Latin script, and it would be pronounced with a Japanese pronunciation of Ifu Ifu. Well, I feel like I'm on a documentary, like Ifu Ifu. I felt like I really had the confidence in that.
You did.
Oh, let me
You
flip my
brought it
hair
to the table and served it up.
Right, girl? Thank you. In 2015, Sakaguchi revealed a twofold reason for it being called Final Fantasy. If this game did not work out, Sakaguchi did plan to go back to college and leave the game industry altogether. And Square, the developer for Final Fantasy, was going bankrupt, so this would either save the company or be the last game they ever made. Funnily enough, no.
And they rose from the ashes.
And it rose from the ashes like a phoenix. Funnily enough, even though Sakaguchi admits it was a back-to-the-wall situation, he stated any word beginning with the letter F would have been fine. I love it was like this very encrypted, this is why it's called, but like, you know what? We were just going for something that rhymed with F.
And you know, some of the best work comes from your back-to-the-wall situation.
Very does. Very much does. Unless you're in like a line being shot, you know?
Oh, yeah. That
I went real dark on that one. I was like,
did.
well, in executions.
Well, I went with basement, so my mind's in the dark places.
We know what happens in basements. Nothing good. Nothing good. While each installment presents different characters and independent storylines, they all contain similar themes and motifs. A lot of sovereign state resistance themes. that the characters are working to dismantle. Think like Handmaid's Tale. The resistance was trying to overthrow Gilead and its horrible practices. And that's a sovereign state.
Hitler.
We don't howl that motherfucker. A lot of tortured heroes or anti-heroes who are struggling with their personal lives in the midst of a greater conflict. Other reoccurring situations that drive the plot include amnesia, a hero corrupted by an evil force, mistaken identity, and self-sacrifice. None of which that describes me.
None of it describes me either.
There are some esoteric and mystical elements. The central conflict in Final Fantasy's game focuses on a group of characters battling an evil and sometimes ancient antagonist that dominates the game's world, such as an apocalyptic war and conflicts between advanced technology and nature. Most games feature names inspired from various cultures, history, languages, mythologies, including Asian, European, and Middle Eastern. In-game items, such as the weapons, follow this tradition. The two most notable are Excalibur and Masamune. I did it.
I'm so proud of you.
Derived respectively from the Arthurian sword and the legendary Japanese swordsmith. This was one of the first major games to also have a death of a largely important character, Aerith. So this is a fun side story. One day, when Jimmy was at his house.
First of all your side stories are fun, but carry on.
So imagine Jimmy's 9 years old, so about our kid's age, and he comes down distraught, hyperventilating, in fucking tears, talking about someone died, and his mother's like, "Oh my God, what happened? What
He's a
happened?"
sensitive soul.
He was crying because this character died.
You would think that you would see an expression of surprise on my face, but it's not there.
No.
Because I'm not.
And I used to love telling that story and just being mean and roasting Jimmy, but then
I was really upset when I watched The Red Wedding at Game of Thrones, so I understand his pain.
Yeah, I understand. You know what? I love that. That's a good reference. So it turns out that this was a very intentional move to have people feel this way. Aerith was designed by Tetsuya Nomura with influence from director and scenario writer Yoshinori Kitase and Hironobu Sakaguchi. When it was decided that she should die, Nomura was inspired by his dislike of the, quote, perennial cliche where the protagonist loves someone very much and so has to sacrifice himself and die in a dramatic fashion to express that love, and questioned if this was the correct sample we should display in this world. Kitase concluded that in real world, things are very different. You just need to look around you. Nobody wants to die that way. People die of disease and accident. Death comes suddenly, and there's no notion of good or bad. It leaves, not a dramatic feeling, but a great emptiness. When you lose someone you love very much, you feel this big empty space and think, if I had known this was coming, I would have done things differently. These are the feelings I wanted to arouse in the players with Aerith's death relatively early in the game, feelings of reality and not Hollywood. And clearly the effect worked as intended.
It did.
Jimmy, poor little 9-year-old Jimmy, distraught.
And the stories we had to hear prior to the starting of this recording from Jimmy about it were deeply emotional and heartfelt.
He a fanboy.
And proud.
You know what? You live your best life, Jimmy. Sound off,
You
King.
live it.
Sound off.
We ain't mad at you.
So Final Fantasy VII is by far the most infamous of the installments and is considered one of the best video games of all time. Originally slated for
By
Nintendo.
who? Mario Brothers is my vote.
Exactly.
Come at me.
You had the old schools. Like, come on now. Come on. You tell me that this is better than Duck Hunt? There's so many people who love video games that are going, oh God, I can't believe that bitch just said that.
I mean, you had a real gun and everything when you played.
Yes.
Thank you for that, Jennifer.
You're welcome. Eventually, the game would move production to PlayStation due to the advantages being on CD format. Spoiler alert, CDs ain't around hardly anymore. Development began in 1994 and veteran Final Fantasy staff returned, which was Sakaguchi, Kitase, which was the director who worked on multiple of the Final Fantasy games and Kingdom Hearts.
You reference that so nonchalantly like I know what the fuck you're talking about.
I also wrote...
It's cool, you don't have to tell me.
I wrote in parentheses, nerd ref, obvi.
If you try to tell me anything, like when JJ's like, oh, the Lord of the Rings movie, and I'm like, never heard of it. And he's like, let me tell you all about it. And I'm like, whoa. I wasn't asking for description. I was just simply saying, I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know.
And that implied I don't care.
I don't know, and I don't want to know.
And then I fake sleep. My narcolepsy. Sorry. I forgot to take my medicine today.
And so Nobuo Uematsu, which is a legendary composer for both anime, video games, all that jazz.
I know.
You don't?
Yes.
First name basis, best friends. It was one of the first in the series to use full motion video and 3D graphics. They would have 3D character models superimposed over 2D pre-rendered backgrounds, like how Disney did. If you look at the old Disney films like Jungle Book.
Take another swig of your drink.
I do need another drink. I gotta hydrate and dehydrate.
Helps relax the vocal cords.
Yeah. I know that turns you on, Jimmy. Calm down.
That's all I was thinking. She has enough of those. She'll do that later for you.
Oh, that's a good one.
Joke's on you, not really.
And so, like, there have been, like, videos of people going through the different old films, like 101 Dalmatians and Jungle Book, and you can see where they use the same background picture of an environment and then just maybe change the tones, and then they have the characters walking in front. So a more modern version of that. So that was like top of the line. 1997.
Throwback.
Whoop, whoop. While the format and gameplay systems are largely the same, the formatting was a game changer. Debuting in 1997 for PlayStation console, the PlayStation. We're not talking about 2, 3. I don't know what number we own now. I tell Jimmy, I was like, I got my PlayStation. I don't know what number it is. Is it 5? I don't know. I know it's a PlayStation.
They said this game only works on the 4. What do I have?
What number am I? Why am I not number 1? Jimmy, you never give me anything nice.
I'll be asking Jimmy, like, why does that Xbox look different than the other Xbox? Well, they're different ones. What do you mean? They're all Xbox. He's like,
I'm not going to make those choices for those Xboxes on who they want to be. Okay.
I'm like on the episode of Big Bang Theory when Sheldon's trying to figure out Xbox or PlayStation. He's asking everybody what their vote is. And Bernadette goes, I like the Wii. That would be me.
I like the Wii. I go bowling. Also, shout out to Jimmy's theme song for Jimmy Fun Facts. It's the Wii sound. If you thought it was familiar, that's what.
I feel seen. I always knew Jimmy liked me more than you.
It's true, though. It sold 3 million copies in Japan within the first 3 days of its release.
Oh, damn. I bet old boy was like, I can finally buy some groceries.
Yeah. I believe I can fly. It's like the redemption arc.
I can pay the electric bill.
I think about it every night and day.
Now I have some light my way.
Chef's gift. Oh my God. This is I couldn't do this without you.
No,
could not.
We could not. Dynamic duo.
Jimmy's like, they're butchering it. They're butchering it. Did you know there's this thing called...
I can guarantee you I did not. But carry on with your inquisitive question.
Street date protocols.
I did not. I knew I would.
First of all, when they say street, I think some gangsters and some drugs are being involved, and I'm like, count me in.
Then when you say date, I think of streetwalkers.
Yes, streetwalkers. But what this is they... when it's an actual release date for like a movie, and they can't release or show any of those things before the release date.
Okay.
Well, they ended up releasing Final Fantasy VII early because there was such a crazy, insane demand. They were like, fuck it, have it.
They were like, these nerds are out of control.
Somebody better do it.
They keep calling us.
It smells so funky in here.
Because I promise they're not writing. They're not causing a big stir. They're just phone calls. Hey, guys, I really need to play this.
Guys, I wish you knew. Or like how those anime people like do their movements and how they talk. I can't do it. I don't know how to do it, but I've seen it on the TikToks.
JJ had some anime cartoons on the other day, and the next day I was like, hey, can you turn something on TV? And I beg of you that it's not anime cartoons.
Camilla loves anime now, and she's into Demon Slayer, and I don't know what the other one, My Hero Academia. And like her and Jimmy had a daddy-daughter date yesterday, and they went out and they played at this arcade in Friends, which I'm sure JJ actually would really enjoy. It's like a bunch of old games from like the 90s. He looked up at that point. He's like, wait, what?
Huh? What? Where? Brunswick?
And then he took her to Hot Topic to buy anime shirts. He's like, don't worry. I didn't take her in the back of the store. I was like, I wasn't, but okay. Did you leave her in front and you go back there? Like, what?
All I care is that both of you were out of my house for a little while. I don't really care what you were doing.
It was 4 hours of uninterrupted writing.
You could be picking up victims for the basement and I wouldn't care. Just kidding. JK, she doesn't have a basement. Or does she?
Oh, you'll never know. Listen, if we ever hit a big and we have a mansion, I'm going to have a hidden basement and hidden passages. And I want a bunch of those portraits where the eyeballs get slid out and you put your eyeballs in it.
I don't care what you guys are doing as long as it's a hobby that you leave me alone.
Right. Let me sit in my creepiness and have it, okay? It's already too hot.
Thank you. And I'm always hungry.
Sony and PlayStation would have a huge hand in this insane demand because they offered Square a deal they could not refuse, like an insane amount of money. And Sony had a lot more experience in Western video game publishing to assist in its widespread success, which didn't even know that was a thing, video game publishing. But today I learned. Despite the Japanese role-playing games being a niche market in the Western countries, this changed that very quickly. This game influenced a generation of new Japanophiles, which is a word I learned.
Oh, I just learned that today too.
This is despite the difficulties in directly translating Japanese to English fluidly and without confusion. Their grammar is set up different. So
right.
They can translate it, but some of that shit wouldn't make sense. So there's a really famous quote, and it goes, "This guy are sick." So there's a lot of ones like that. So it did
just
have
like
its
Spanish. Their setup of a sentence is completely different than ours.
So despite that, like, people fucking love the shit out of it. So now I know I might have lost some of y'all at this point. I was almost lost at this point. Okay, it's a lot of information, and honestly,
if it weren't for this drink that Jimmy made me, I would have been lost. But I'm here for it.
It's as integral to understanding how far some people will go for such a beloved culture to know these things in the context of the story of what happened.
I would go
here.
really far for, dinosaur themed things. So
listen, if there ever is a dinosaur murderer, like they use dinosaur bones or some shit to kill people,
I'm here for
say
it.
less.
Say less, fam.
Say less. Count me in.
Count me in.
And so it's also important we delve into the gameplay and the characters so it's not confusing as fuck later, considering they were so deeply enmeshed in Final Fantasy VII. It was nearly a cult religion for them.
Sure.
So
but anybody that, follows D&D, they'll easily be able to follow something like this. And I feel like this is the same target audience.
One of the developers for this game, and I forgot to write this fact down, he was a huge D&D nerd and based some of the scenarios
Makes sense.
D&D games, and I was like,
and I'm really disappointed in myself that I'm following everything that's being said right now.
That shit tracks, son.
Why do I know these things?
Why? So Final Fantasy takes place on a world called Gaia. Originally it was called Planet, but they changed it to Gaia later on.
Good, because Planet wasn't working for me.
No. It's very off-brand.
Sprinkle a little creativity on there.
I mean, seriously. Gaia's life force is called the life stream, which I don't know why you wouldn't just call it life force, but that's me. Seems like we're reinventing the wheel here. Somebody had to get their thesaurus out and get the similar words. It's a flow of energy that gives life everything, a sort of spiritual carbon building block, if I may.
Okay, you can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Its processed form is called Mako. On a societal level, Gaia is described as post-industrial, and its economy has changed from one that produces and thrives on tangible goods to one that values knowledge as a form of capital instead. We're kind of headed that way ourselves. So think about all the industries that have gone defunct. Like you have your the knocker-ups of Western Europe. There were these ladies that would go out and they would
they would shoot the peas to wake
people up because it was so expensive to have clocks. Well, then
I was going to write a podcast about that.
Were you really?
Swear to God, I have it screenshotted and I started looking it up to do like a mini Mind Bleach episode about it. And there's one about a famous lady that was was one.
Well, then we'll put a pin on that. I want to hear that.
We're always on the same level.
And so
you complete me.
Right here's hearts. The live stream is being drained of energy by an evil electric power company called Shinra in the city of Midgar. Sounds like ERCOT. Gonna be honest. Sounds like they're not prepared for anything. This threatens the existence of all life on Gaia. There are a few important factions also to note in the game. You have the Avalanche, which is the eco-terrorist group aimed at taking down Shinra. The Turks, which are a covert branch of Shinra's security forces, kind of like special forces. Soldier is
That's cute.
yeah, right? Soldier is an Shinra elite fighting force created by supercharging humans with Mako, and the Cetra, which is a near extinct human tribe of which they have a strong connection to Gaia in the life stream. So like how indigenous Americans, a lot of their religion has to do with nature and the closest between the people and the nature. Or if you want to go on the nerd scale, the Children of the Forest from Game of Thrones. And so the characters, the protagonist of Final Fantasy is Cloud Strife. Honestly, it sounds like someone did Mad Libs for some of these names. And they tried to translate it again and after that. And it's just translation. Like, you know what? A badass name is Cloud Strife.
I'll be scared. I'd be scared.
He is a mercenary who claims to be...
dangerous clouds coming.
He's a mercenary who claims to be a former first-class soldier. Barrett Wallace and Tifa Lockhart, they are two members of Avalanche that Cloud works with early on. Barrett is kind of like a father figure to Cloud, but a little bit of a loose cannon. So think like Woody Harrelson.
Okay. I love Woody Harrelson.
Tifa is a childhood friend of Cloud and a shy martial artist. And on the journey of Cloud, Barrett, and Tifa, they meet Aerith Gainsborough, which is the one that Jimmy cried about. She's a flower merchant and one of the last surviving Cetra. Side note, a significant part of Tifa's reception has focused on her sex appeal, to this end having appeared on third-party merchandise related to this aspect and cited as a frequent search topic on Pornhub. So the first rendering of her was a unproportionally busty woman.
Aren't they all?
And Square would have their ethics team ask if they could give her more clothes and tighten her chest. Still, like they got an actual woman and they put what size bra that Tifa would wear. And it was like a Japanese double G. And they were like, this is like a Barbie's proportion. This bitch is going to be bent over on the ground.
And this is too much.
Still, she was still chesty afterwards, but the fact that there's a lot of porn about her, I'm like, woo. So, Zach Fair, which is a minor character that appears only in flashbacks. It turns out Cloud has like an identity crisis, and his whole personality is Zach's actually, and he didn't realize it. It's fucking, I don't know. It's a story. Anyways.
That's good enough for me.
Yeah, thank you. Sephiroth, he's the main bad dude. He has abandoned his humanity to become godlike by absorbing all of Gaia's life stream. So he sounds like a party pooper. And then you have Hojo, also called Professor Hojo.
Stop.
He's the
Isn't that like a string at gas stations?
That's what it sounds like, doesn't it? He's the biological father of Sephiroth, the bad guy. He's a fragile, evil sociopath of a professor who has a supervillain plans to drain Gaia of all its life stream. You have Jenova, which is Sephiroth's mother and an extraterrestrial life form. Quote unquote, is what Jimmy just told me.
Oh.
She was E.T., basically. She originally crashed on Gaia and nearly wiped out the Cetra with a virus before they entombed her that they later, Shinra later uncovered and excavated.
Oh,
and Shinra is like, oh, she must be Cetra. And so they use her DNA to create Shinra soldiers and Sephiroth, the bad guy. Vincent Valentine is a Turk assigned to guard a scientist who he also falls in love with. He has a terrible history and a cryptic personality that rarely speaks. To me, he always makes me think of like a vampire. JJ, a vampire. Well, I mean, JJ ages like a vampire. The only thing that makes him look any kind of age is his gray hair, because otherwise, look at that skin. He has, I don't know what y'all skincare is, but both of y'all look young.
Okay, first of all, thank you. And second of all, stop pumping him up.
Listen, I see you, JJ.
I've really worked to beat him into submission.
As you should.
Just kidding.
Or is she? And so Sid Highwind. Sid is a bit of a quantum leap character.
I used to love that show.
I know. I was like, I don't know if any other people remember Quantum Leap. Like, I remember Quantum Leap.
do.
I fucking love the shit out of that.
Thank you. Me too.
So he's reoccurring, but often in alternate versions of himself. So in this one, particularly, he's an airship pilot that works for Shinra.
I have alternate versions, like my work version. That's nice.
Oh, I was doing all my personalities. You got the bitch Jennifer, the jerk Jennifer, the harassing Jennifer, the annoying
audacity Jennifer.
The audacity. So I am, now that we get that stuff out of the way, that's the basis. we're going to talk about the actual cult.
That was just the foundation.
That's just
more?
the setup. That took me a whole day of research and feeling very confused. I played this game and I still don't remember. Like, I don't. I had Kelly telling me about it last night. She was like, and then this happened. I was like, bitch, how do you remember and I don't? So I'm a fan of many things. Some I have deep knowledge of and a strong love for, but none that could even touch the fanatics of what happened here. And before I go in too far, there isn't a whole lot.
You've already gone too far, but anyway.
Anyways, there's not a whole lot of information out there necessarily. Like, there's not a Wikipedia page on this cult.
Oh, shocking.
I know. That's what I said. I was like, Wikipedia has everything. You let me down.
You disappointed me.
Such disappointment.
This is why I won't donate when you ask me every time I go.
So there is a written account by some of the victims, and that's where it comes from. So this is I'm pretty sure a lot of this stuff did happen, but this happened in like 2005 or some shit like that. And it was a long time ago, and these were all young kids, kind of. So take it with a grain of salt. To me, it makes me wonder if some of these were exaggerated. But again, we're also talking about a cult. So suspend belief for this because some weird shit happens in the world, okay?
Oh, that's where we're getting to the cult stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready now.
Cheers.
Everybody turned and looked at me. Excuse me, JJ, but stop picking up Jimmy's habits of mean mugging us.
I love how I was like, cheers.
I
It
know.
was totally intentional.
Thank you for being there and supporting me while these two are
Hold
mean
on.
mugging me.
There we go.
Every time there's a super nerd reference made, we'll just cheers.
Cheers. And so the legend and the lore of Final Fantasy began on LiveJournal, basically.
I don't even know what that is.
So that is like pre-MySpace.
Okay.
So it is old, like
Think
way out there.
LimeWire, Napster.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's like Napster before they really got into like getting into the lawsuits and stuff. And Lars from Metallica was like, fuck Napster, you know? So this is started with a person, they called themselves Icarus, and they were issuing a warning to other people about what he had experienced. This warning was written in 2005 and states that it took place between 2001 and 2002. He blames himself for ingratiating with these dangerous people. He blames that he was a 19-year-old college student who was a little bit of a drunkard. Okay, no shame. You was in college, son. Live your best life, okay?
Your best life.
I see you. He was a huge Final Fantasy VII fan, and this is funny because he writes in, he goes like, so basically I had a website dedicated to Cloud and Nick. It was not something that normally happens. So, oh yeah, Zach, I wrote Nick for some reason. I was so out of it. So it was based on Cloud and Zach. And then he like flexes on like being like a one of a kind. Like, so I had lots of fans. And I was like, bro, okay.
Can y'all hear my eyes rolling?
So this fame meant he had interactions with friends and fans. So when he received a message from a person named Hojo, it wasn't really a red flag. Hojo would quickly start calling Icarus Zach, and he didn't mind that because that was his favorite character. Icarus, which from this point on, I'll probably just call Zach, just make it less confusing.
I was just thinking how I should start calling JJ Harry. That's his favorite character.
So Hojo and Zach talk on and off, casual friends, acquaintances, if you will. And one day, Hojo messaged Zach about a fan art portrait of the character Jenova. And Hojo asked weirdly, oh my God, this is super realistic. Did you get this from memory? Like, is this something you experienced? And Zach's like, I just made it up. And he's like, oh, okay. And he like, sounds like disappointed, doesn't talk for a couple days. Then out of nowhere, Hojo sends him a message and says, my wife wants to talk to you. Hojo's wife is named Jen or Jennifer.
No.
And it says people call her
weird.
Jenova or Jenny Nova.
Weird. That's what she has me call her.
I know, right? Shh, don't tell them all our secrets.
Is Icarus really Jimmy?
Yeah, it is. Icarus flew a little too close to the sun. The sun being me. And then I melted his ass.
That's all true.
So Jenova would claim that she was a sorceress. Zach was like, she just real into it. She would send like all these emojis and stuff. And he was like, my furry friends are like that too. And I was like, which is cool. No judgment, friend. You know,
I feel a little judgment, but
Jenova would eventually ask about the memories of past lives and if Zach believed reincarnation. While he didn't believe per se, he felt receptive and open to the possibility. This has her go down a rabbit hole, Jenova, explaining infinite universes and that maybe video games were just past lives.
Maybe.
She also suggests that she has to be Zach in a past life and gives some justifications. Now, remember, they've only spoken online, and we all know that our online selves aren't an actual representation of ourselves. It's really what we kind of want to be. And so this was what Jenova told him, like, oh, so you're like Zach because you're both country grown. Y'all don't like to leave friends behind. You take a bullet for people. You don't believe in magic, and you want to be a mercenary. And you live in a basement, and Zach was trapped in a basement for a couple days. And for all the 5 and 6 lines he says, it matches your speech pattern.
Oh, Jesus.
Now, Zach says that in his vulnerable state, the power of suggestion gets him. It could be possible. She states that he is their Zach, and he will go along with their other friends from the game that they had found. He's like, I'm cool with role-playing. They just really get into it, I guess. Christmas 2001, Hojo and Jenova invite Zach to come visit them a weekend before the holiday. They said, I'll cover food and everything. You just pay for your ticket. And the bus ticket was like $300 from where he lived to College Station or State College, PA.
I was like, College Station? That's right around the corner.
Yeah. For State College, PA. Somebody else from Pennsylvania named Jimmy. Mm-hmm. Anyways, I digress. So he was like, all right, fine, I'll do it. And so he planned, like, he's like, okay, I'll go visit them in Pennsylvania, and then I'll go to my mom's house in Brooklyn after that for the holidays. So I just go ahead and bring my pet rat with me, put him in his little travel cage.
All right, I didn't see that coming.
Nobody did. I
love surprises, so.
So when he gets there, he discovers Hojo is not a male, like he is in the video game. It's a transgender female. So
okay.
Female, male presenting. Hojo is wearing the signature accessory of Professor Hojo, which is a lab coat. Comes to pick this motherfucker from the bus station in a lab coat. Once they're at their apartment, he meets Jenova, but not in a normal way. She looked like she had just woken up. And you know, like those button-up skirts that you wear? She took it and she pulled it up over her chest. And that was her outfit. It was like a purple button-up skirt that she made into a dress. And
was he like probably immediately going, what?
She acts like Zach's not even fucking there and starts screaming at Hojo, like tearing into her, and then stops, flips a switch, and is like, hey, Zach, welcome. Like a fucking psychotic person.
Okay.
Like none of that should just happen. At this point, Zach's like, what the fuck? And then starts to realize as he looks around that this apartment is disgusting. Like it's a disaster. There's trash and glitter everywhere. He's like, you know what? Young cosplayers to each their own. Jenova was fucking crazy. She would have these terrible tantrums. Once while visiting, him, Hojo, and Jenova all went to the mall. She saw something she had to have. Well, Hojo didn't have the money. Zach didn't have the money. So she threw a tantrum in the mall like she was 2 years old, crying and angry because she couldn't get the thing she wanted.
You don't do that when Jimmy doesn't get you what you want?
Well, I mean, I at least keep it to a bathroom. You know what I mean? I like to make everybody uncomfortable while they're at the hand dryer. And so she would change personalities like underwear. Zach would say, quote, about this time, I started to realize, though, Jen wasn't role-playing when she talked about her children and other selves. Jen is what the internet calls a soul bonder, or in other words, batshit loony. Regardless, he humored her because he's, I guess, way too polite. Me and you would have left.
Out.
And no.
First of all, when the place was dirty, I'd have been gone then.
I'd been like, you know what? I forgot. I left my curling iron plugged in. And I don't want to be liable, okay? People could die.
I haven't paid my renter's insurance this month. I got to be safe.
Listen, if it was your house, you would do it too.
JJ would be polite.
And so she's
very polite.
Very polite. Super polite. So Zach spends the weekend, and when he's about to go visit his mother, he gets in a fight with his mother. I guess mother's very controlling or whatever. And Jenova and Hojo are like, just stay a couple more days. Teach her a lesson. And he's like, you know what? You're right.
I will stay in this filth.
I will stay in this disgusting home.
I would rather deal with my overbearing mother than stay in filth.
She was like, my family's terrible too. And Hojo had to come to California and save me from my parents. And I had this ex-friend who tried to train me to be like Sephiroth. And I was like, valid, what?
You saw my eyebrows. I'm listening. Oh. Last
Okay.
one?
Eventually, it would come time to leave. And the whole time, Jen's like trying to talk him into staying. And he's like, well, I got to get on the bus tomorrow. Do you know what time? Oh, yeah, I know. It's on the computer. I'll print it out and we'll go. No big deal. He's like, all right. And she wouldn't let him get on the computer to look. But he was like, it's fine. Right? Plausible.
Sure, I'll trust you.
They get to the bus station. Turns out she was wrong. And the bus
Shocking.
that he was meant for had left an hour earlier. And so it was like, all right, it was probably an accident. She was just off an hour. No big deal. She did it on purpose.
Oh, for sure.
She did it on purpose. Despite this, he would eventually still go home and then come back and visit the two quite often the next couple months. This is what confused me about this character, that I'm almost like kind of don't want to believe you, because you were talking about how crazy you were, but you're also like, it's cool, man.
Yeah.
And if it was me,
You're paying money to go back there.
If it was me and I was just trying to be polite that one time, that would be the last time I come to their fucking house.
For sure.
I would have walked out as soon as she started screaming. I've been like, this bitch, what? No.
Screaming, and your house is dirty?
Mm-mm.
That's 2 for 2.
Nah. It's going to be a no for me, dog.
It's a hard no.
This is when he would start meeting new people. So every time you visit, there'd be a new person. And every fucking one of them was a video game character.
Of course.
One of them, the real life characters they found for the game, is Aerith. And so Aerith and Zach in the video game were lovers. But in the real life, they were just friends. They played video games together. No big deal. But this wouldn't work for Jenova. She's like, y'all are a couple. Kiss. And they were like, nah, we just friends. She's like, I'm going to put aphrodisiacs in your food. Like, bitch, what are you going to put in there? Glitter?
And could you let JJ know what those are? Because he'll start spiking my food.
Right? She came obsessed to the point that she decided to take on the personality of Aerith's imaginary boyfriend, and the two would make out while Zach was in the room.
Wait a minute, he was imaginary?
I guess she had an imaginary boyfriend. That's the way that the kid wrote it.
Okay, so there was no one there. She was just making out with Air?
Well, she was making out with the girl.
Oh, okay,
that she wanted to be with Zach. But since he did not want to participate, she was like, well, I will be him.
Okay.
And I will kiss on her.
Okay.
And he was like, this was highly uncomfortable. I'm not a very affectionate person. And they're over there making like sloppery sounds and shit. And I'm just like, oh, God. Which I also would be like, Jesus fucking
Christ. And might I add, the house was dirty.
I shouldn't have come back. And so Jenova was just hella into LARPing, which is live action role playing.
Okay.
And Zach was far too serious to really get into it. He would just humor her. He was not serious enough where he wouldn't go visit, but he also did bring friends to meet Hojo and Jenova. So I guess he didn't think they were that bad.
Look, if the first time I went to JJ's, he introduced me to his friends Mario and Luigi.
First of all, can I have an autograph?
I probably wouldn't come back. I would politely humor him. And Mario and Luigi. And then I would not come back.
I would only come back if they were going to feed me pizza.
True. That might entice me to come back. And garlic nuts. I'm so hungry.
He brought a friend who would, with Jenova's determination, become another character, Vincent Valentine. She would try to do past life regressions, and that meant like she would shut them up in a room that was dark, and she would play music from the soundtrack. And both of them were like giggling and like, this is fucking stupid. I can't believe we're doing this.
So JJ had friends Mario and Luigi, and then he turned on the soundtrack. Best date ever.
And so they did have something that they did bring to the table, even though they didn't want to participate in her magic. They both were really great at drawing, and she asked them to draw her a dounishi, which is a porn anime.
Okay.
And she wanted
Everybody has their own things they like.
She wanted them to draw a serious comic that involved tentacle rape and the characters Hojo and Vincent, but they disappointed her with silly tactics of drawing marshmallow peeps covering up their genitals. And I was like,
now
I
that's
love
artwork
that.
I'm here for.
That, if I just want all the classic art with little marshmallow pizza over the dick and balls. Okay.
Yes.
I want one over each tit.
Yes. I'm here for that.
So Jen was just fucking crazy if we haven't realized it yet. And she would take shit to new heights. She would make them eat and drink mako, which was food that was dyed green, and green Gatorade.
Okay.
She did try to get syringes once, to no success, to Zach's relief, because he's like, I'm sure she would have delivered 50 cc's of tap water into my veins. She would lie just to get whatever she wanted, and then if she was stressed out, she'd faint. I'm gonna let that bitch hit the floor. Let her.
Maybe that's what I need to start doing when I ask JJ if he'll go make my coffee and he's busy. Just fall to the
I feel
ground.
so much better if I had Gavina.
I'm just kidding. He never tells me no.
He should not.
I know.
Just saying.
I'm treated like the princess I am.
Exactly. You not even a princess. You're a queen.
Thank you.
Okay. You're royal.
I
You're
feel
godlike.
Thank you.
An angel.
That's what he says.
As you should.
Thank you.
She would say, I'll cover food if you just buy your bus ticket. And then whenever he'd get there, she'd be like, oh, we don't have any food. How about some money? And he'd be like, well, I am a guest in your house. So then he would buy her whatever she wanted.
Oh, see, I would be mad if I showed up with the promise of food and then they didn't have any.
Exactly. Like, I paid $300. $300 in 2005. This is post 9/11. Economy's in the shit. $300 is a lot of money.
We met my friend Amy and her husband out one night, and she was like, yeah, it's a restaurant. And we get there, and all they had was food trucks. And everybody had to hear me bitch about it for like 2 hours until they fed me.
I don't do that.
Because I was like,
cannot.
This was supposed to be a restaurant, and there's only a chicken and waffle truck out front.
And you're outside probably.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be outside. I don't want to eat my food and fight the flies over it. Okay.
Yeah, I
You
was
just
not
have it.
happy. Ask JJ. I was not. He was like, there's food trucks. It's okay. I was like, it's not okay.
It's not okay. Quit trying to make it okay. This is not acceptable.
He's so easygoing. I, on the other hand, am not.
I am not. I am not the person. Mm-mm. She would also keep trying to lock them in the rooms to remember their past lives. And she would only cook meat. Now, Zach was raised vegan, which means his body had a hard time digesting meat because it
He
never
never
really
had
had it. So she would cook only meat, and having no choice, he would eat it and then just get really sick. So she did it on purpose to fuck with him.
And he kept going back.
And it kept going back.
And you know what? That's the premise of a cult, though.
That's it. So homie apparently had no boundaries and eternal patience. So when they invited him to move in with him for the summer, he was like, say less. And things would go from bad to worse for Zach.
Oh, this isn't worse?
Oh, yeah. He becomes their workhorse. Jenova was a frail being, and Hojo was a frail scientist. So he had to do all the heavy lifting, all the cleaning or whatever. Hojo was a full-time student. Jenova had infrequent babysitting jobs, and she would eventually stop accepting jobs. So there was really no money coming in. So they would just use him. Zach would eventually start working. He could only find a job at a supermarket and basically did everything from feeding them to fixing shit around the house. And he started drinking less. And that's when his tolerance for this bullshit started to dwindle. I was like, oh, that's what makes sense. He was drunk the whole time.
Yeah.
You a lot more receptible.
Oh, yeah. I'm way more tolerant when I'm drunk.
Yeah. So at this point, Jenova was up his ass 24/7 to keep tabs on him. If he was on the computer, she was over his shoulder.
I can't stand that.
She controlled his money, what he could eat. She would wake him up at weird times to find fairy rings, and other odd shit, and making him severely sleep deprived.
I swear to God, if JJ woke me up to find some fairy wings, we would be fighting.
It'd be the last time he ever did.
Fisticuffs.
Fisticuffs.
Yeah.
2 hits. I hit you, you hit the floor.
Yeah. I don't even like when he wakes me up to tell me I gotta get ready for work.
Girl. I'll be like, Jimmy, wake me up at 9 tomorrow. He come wake me up. Why?
Yeah, exactly.
And so he couldn't even speak to his family without Jen or Hojo supervising and coaching his responses.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
At one point, because they were, quote, broke and they didn't want to clean their apartment, they moved into a smaller apartment together. Ew. The housekeeping and hygiene was appalling. Jenova cleaned herself using essential oils and glitter.
What the fuck?
No bath. And that purple dress I told you about, it's all she ever wore. And it didn't get washed.
Oh, that's disgusting.
And there's pictures of their house, and it looks like really kind of bare, but like there's no sheets on the bed. There's trash here, trash there. It's like,
She washed her vagina with essential oils and glitter?
The thing about glitter is plastic that can cut the shit out of you. You gonna rub that on your coochie? Like, sir,
Gross.
stop it.
When you blow glitter farts.
And what's worse is the fact that previously he wouldn't have been in the room when they physically and verbally fought, which was all the time. Like, they would hit each other in front of people and then have loud sex. And he was like,
essential oil and glitter puss.
yes.
I shouldn't say that word. That's why I stopped.
You know what's funny is like
essential oil and glitter genitalia.
Hojo was, transgender. And so in Jenova's eyes, she was like, well, I'm not a lesbian. And she was really offended if people called her a lesbian. And I'm sitting there going, the first thing I think is, what do lesbians do?
I don't know. Okay, first of all, stop being stereotypical.
And I'm like, listen, I don't even want to have sex after, like, I'm a shower then sex person. I am not.
Yeah.
I'm not coming in after being raunchy all day.
No.
Period. End of story. No.
End of discussion.
And this girl over here with glitter vagina.
Peppermint oil.
And only eats meat. So that's coming out of her pores.
Ugh. The meat sweats.
Zach ends up having to move all the things in the apartment, just about everything by himself in the heat of summer.
Okay, first of all, I didn't move stuff out of our apartment to our house. Not one thing. Not one.
Listen, I was being cheap, so I moved.
That's why I have 12 kids.
Listen, they don't die of cholera. They're in it. When we moved, I moved like things that I could carry, but if furniture, we paid someone. And then when they came, moved our furniture as fast as they did, I was like, I should have had to move every fucking thing. I will never move another box. Thank you. All this while, they're broke, right? And he's using his tiny ass supermarket paycheck to pay for all their food, their bills, everything. And they get into the new apartment and she goes, let's go get stuff for the apartment, and pulls out all this cash. She'd been hoarding it the whole fucking time.
Oh.
And he still doesn't leave.
No.
Pisses him off, but he doesn't leave. Because he worked at the grocery store, they have the day old food from like the deli and stuff. She was like, well, you need to ask them for the day old food. We can't afford to buy groceries. Go ask them for the day old stuff. And he would get in trouble. And there was one manager that like took pity on him. He's like, you shouldn't I don't want to see you do it. I'll just turn my head.
I'll put it in the dumpster and you go get it out.
Exactly. Like, poor guy sitting there working his ass off with stinky glitter women.
I mean, I can be an ass, but I would never tell JJ to go ask for day old food.
No.
I'm like, we'll find a way.
Exactly.
I'm not that mean.
Yeah. Jimmy in the background. They also had another friend that came over, and this one went by the video game Sid's name. Zach had a little bit of a love-hate relationship. Hojo and Jenova would talk shit about how Sid was arrogant and boisterous and like that kind of guy. But then they would have him over all the time, and then they would get in fights with him. And so he kind of liked him and he kind of didn't. And they would get in pissing matches, him and Jenova, and would leave for times. And he would sometimes feel like, I hope he never comes back. And then sometimes be like, I wish he had taken me with him. And so it wasn't until Aerith, their friend Aerith, left that he started really considering what was really happening to him. The final nail in the coffin was a day that Jen called Hojo and Zach in hysterics while they were shoplifting at a bookstore. They were that poor. They were shoplifting at a bookstore. And then Jenova said,
don't steal groceries. Don't steal essentials. Go steal books.
Exactly. And it was probably anime.
That would be JJ.
Bless their hearts.
See, he shook his head in agreement.
Their pea-picking
he
hearts.
He loves Barnes & Nobles.
Who doesn't, though?
I know, it is.
The smell of brand new books.
Yeah.
Apparently, I guess, Aerith called her and said she was going to come get her stuff. And Jim was like, I'm going to get my stuff. And so they hauled a cab that they could not afford, raced home. And he comes in, and Sid showed up, and Hojo and Zach show up, and Sid's got like paper towels over her arms. And turns out it looks like it was just like scratches, like scrapes, like she'd used a butter knife or some shit. And it was just superficial. And Zach had a history of self-harm, and he was like, that's not right. And it pissed him off. Still didn't leave, though. He's closer, but didn't leave. At this point, Zach starts losing hours of work, and he dwindles down to 1 hour a week.
1 hour? What do you do? Walk in, clock in, say hi to everybody, and leave?
Exactly. It was probably a way to get him to quit because he was asking for day old shit or something, poor kid. And he knew he couldn't live on that. And to add insult to injury.
Really? You couldn't live on $8 every 2 weeks?
Yeah. He was sent home from work one day and it was pouring rain and he didn't have a jacket or an umbrella. So all his clothes got wet. His shoes got wet. So he left his shoes outside the apartment, went in. Next morning, shoes were gone.
Oh.
And he's like, the fuck? I can't have my food. I can't keep my money. And now they fucking taken my shoes. That's it. So he takes like one thing of clothes, a couple of his personal items, and leaves barefoot.
That's sad.
And is homeless for a couple days. And he gets in touch with Sid. And Sid actually helps him. He gets him in touch with his dad, helps him get on a plane ticket so he can go home, gets him a pair of shoes, get some food. And his dad actually, I guess, lived in Alabama. Flew him home. He's like, I spent a couple days just eating food. Sid's roommate had fed him before he left. And he's like, all I wanted was like ramen and toast because I couldn't even afford that.
Mm.
And I had not had that in months. I was like, God damn, you can't even afford ramen?
That's bad.
That's bad, son.
That's bad. Prisoners can afford ramen.
Exactly. Poor fuck. That kid, he got fucking screwed. And so he comes back and Jennifer is like yelling at him and everything. And he's just like, I'm done. He blocks her, moves out of her life. And then 3 years later, he decides, I want to post about it. And as soon as he does, his inbox is flooded with replies and stories of experiences with Jen, whose real name is Jennifer Cornett. She had tried contacting him over the years, and he kept blocking her. He created this website called Demon Sushi to share his and other victims of Jennifer Cornett. And boy, it's a hell of a rabbit hole. 17 years later, that site is still active. You can still go and read all these stories. And so most people just talk about his account, Icarus, but she had many victims. And so I'm going to give you some accounts just to show the scale of what she did. They had a girl named Zarla who was a weekend visitor to Hojo in Jenova's apartment, and she had a lot of the same initial experiences that Zach had. She was chosen to be Vincent Valentine, and she was visiting while there was a free Jimmy Eat World concert nearby. They tried to do past life regression with using music from the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack, and they had her purchase and buy them things, and she felt obligated because she was staying there as their guest. Like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if you bought me this? Like, where they're at a turn. Would you ever go and stay at someone's house and be like, it'd be nice if you bought me this?
No.
And they would have sex and abuse each other in front of her.
Yeah. Definitely not buying you anything.
There is a person named Catherine Rain. She submitted a letter she gave Jenova on the exit of their relationship with a few wonderful highlights. And these are direct what she wrote. You do not look like any Final Fantasy characters. You look like Jennifer Cornett. End of story. I, for that matter, look nothing like Yuna. Yuna looks Asian. You have no money because you keep spending it on things you want. I had money because I rarely bought anything for myself. Whenever I got some money, I would save it. I'm not a money generator, and neither are my parents. If you want to have money, you need not to spend it.
And you need to get a jab.
Mm-hmm. I now do not have any money because I spent it on you. Poof, all gone. You still wanted more, but I didn't have any more to give you. Nobody has everything they want. Not you, not Renee. Renee is Hojo's real name, I believe. There's like confusion on names and shit. Not Zach, not Tickles. I don't know who the fuck Tickles is. Not Karina. Not Britney Spears, not your parents, not Waka, not W, not even me. This is
Waka.
Life. It's a bitch.
It is.
When any person gets something he wants, he immediately starts wanting something else. This is called being human. It too is a bitch. Everyone needs attention. Everyone needs to also shut the fuck up sometimes. Let people pay attention to something else. You stole my crystals in doujinshi. They do not belong to you, and you took them and refused to give them back. They are not yours. This is my favorite line right here. I have been using crystals since I was 10 years old. You are wrong when you start with that you won't use them properly shit, because I've been using crystals since elementary school.
So,
bitch!
Burn.
You taught me no magic. The only thing I actually learned from you was to be aware of people like you.
Oh.
Healthy friendships do not require fighting.
True.
And there's another person named Mila who had a very close kind of experience to what Icarus had. And this is a lot of quotes from her. When my parents went crazy and stopped paying for school, I was ripe for picking. Jen talked to me intricately about all the things that were going on and somehow managed to make it sound so much worse. Her solution was my money and me should come live with her. I was frantic to get away from my parents, scared, wanted desperately to live in a place where I was accepted. That place was definitely not with Jen, but I didn't know it at the time. So I packed all my belongings in my little red car and I drove 4,000 miles cross country to live in Pennsylvania. Things went bad from the first day. By the time I had gotten there, I was scared, freaked out, and very tired. Jen promised me a full week of uninterrupted time to calm down and relax. I arrived at 3 a.m. on day 1 to find the house empty. That knocking produced no results. I called the phone, which was busy. I hunkered down in my car in sub-freezing temperatures and waited for someone to show up. After a couple hours, I left my car, knocked on the door again, and then yelled through the mail slot trying to find them. Eventually, they came downstairs and let me in. They had locked the door after Jen and Angel left to spend the night driving around doing that. The Angel was Jen's husband later on. Or wife, I don't know. Again, a lot of confusion with names and stuff. And a lot of gender fluidity, which is normal in that, I think, in that area, because people will cosplay as all these different characters, and it's not about the gender necessarily. Everything with Jen was money, magic, or some combination of money and magic. She bought everything for its magical properties. Didn't you know everything purple was magical?
I did.
I moved in with $17,000 in my bank account, and soon Jen had drained all of that on necessities, all for the house, many of which that went into Jen's room and never came out. Soon I received a check from the investment company my investment company of $80,000, and Jen's spending began again in earnest. I tried to get her to stop spending money on frivolous things, but every time I said no or told her she should spend her own money buying things for herself, she threw a fit. All this time, she was telling me how important I was to her special plan and how the world needed us to stick together so we could conquer evil, etc. I wanted desperately to feel special. I was scared and alone. I believed her. She knew a few magic tricks, was really good at reading people, and could give relatively accurate tarot readings. I fell for her lies, hook, line, and sinker. She would go on to pressure Mila into becoming a stripper to make Jen more money. Because she worked at a bank, Becky. Mila worked at a bank, and she made her quit and become a stripper. Now, nothing wrong with that career if that's the career you choose. But if somebody else forces you, then that's sex trafficking.
Right.
Mila would end up making most of the money and would kick Jen out of her home and her life. And she also listed out who Jen believed herself to be. She believed herself to be Morgan Le Fay, Laura Croft, Integra Helsing, Alucard from Helsing, everyone from the Incredible cartoon, Arwen from Lord of the Rings, Jenova from Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth, Cloud, and Zack, also from Final Fantasy VII, Ultimisia from Final Fantasy, who also happens to be her mother, quite a bit of the cast from Babylon 5, Buffy Summers, Angel, Spike, Drusilla, the Master, Willow, Xander, and anyone else she thinks is cool from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Which I was like, okay, I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm gonna go. But what does Jen think? I'm sure you're wanting to know. Wow, fret not, because Icarus also posted her self-autobiography. And for your listening pleasure and to keep the torture to a minimum, I just took a couple excerpts to see the craziness. Hi, my name is Jen, and I help rehabilitate vampires and assist in spiritual wakings. I also take care of metaphysical emergencies, and oh yeah, I do exorcisms and banishings too. I'm quite versed in ancient ritual, and I often use my own blood to seal spells. I'm not Catholic, but I'm not Wiccan. God talks to me and tells me that the end of the world is at hand. She says, I'm married to Metatron, and oh yes, I'm physical embodiment of the angel Uriel. In past lives, I've been Integra Van Helsing, Sephiroth, and Delandu Albatu, amongst others. I've been to many therapists, but they all keep telling me I'm okay. Aside from Catholic priests wanting to exorcise my house and my husband, things are pretty normal, unless you count having 20-some kids live in the mental realm that my husband and I share as not normal.
Okay.
I have no father. My mother is unhuman. My crazy Uncle Michael works for MI5, and my best guy friend was created in a super secret laboratory in Glendale, California, and was, quote, born in the same hospital as I was in Pasadena, which leads both of us to believe that I might be part of the same, quote, project. My husband, by the way, besides being Metatron, is also no life king. Not a Nosferatu, No, but an ekthros, and a mad scientist, and an emperor, and a priest. Again, these are all direct. This is exactly what she wrote, apparently.
Okay. She sounds sane to me so far.
Oh, and another confession. I'm Enrico Maxwell. That's right. I'm a twitching, Bashuan jerk of a priest. Now, little boy, do you want to confess to me? Rip Van Winkle, a.k.a. Riven William, a.k.a. Rivanna Josephine Krastenberg. She's my disassociated sex drive. If you want to flirt with me, message her, because sex to me is unnecessary and useful only for breeding purposes. Unless you catch me on the right day and you're an Iscariot. And then, well, a little demon talk, some red wine, and you could probably sack me. So there you go. A little sum up of me. Call me crazy, call me nuts, run away from me, or vice versa. I really want these panic attacks to go away, and sleep would be nice. While I'm at it, I wish I had a pony.
Ah, that's how I end everything too.
So who is Jen Cornett and where is she? No one knows. There hasn't been anything indicating her presence after 2015 in the circles that she was running. Doesn't mean that she stopped. She could just have created a whole new fucking personality and another set of, because obviously she isn't just a Final Fantasy VII fan. She has lots of fandoms, and to me, it's a mental illness issue at that point.
Right.
A lot of people have anonymously or semi-anonymously shared their stories. The ones I touched on are only a drop in the bucket in her list of victims. Many of them have spoken their piece and have chosen to move on, and who could blame them? I too wouldn't share that I was grifted by a glittery, smelly weirdo of the worst proportions, okay? So no judgment here. Just like any cults and any crime, there's a fair bit of denial when it comes to realizing you're in a bad situation and you are in real danger. No one means to end up in an abusive hostage situation. If you feel the need to read insanely uncomfortable and abusive fandom, you could lose yourself in the vast stories. But beware, there's a lot of cringe and a whole lot more abuse than even I can handle. If you and yourself are in this situation, need help out, know there are resources available, such as the spiritualabuseresources.org or the Cult Education Institute, or if you just need assistance in finding those resources, you can always reach out to us. You're not alone. We're not here to shame.
Nope.
No. But definitely keep an eye out for Jenova.
Yeah.
She's probably still out there. There are so many. So when you Google it, like I said, it's all these things that are on different message boards and like private sites and stuff. So is it all real? Are these pictures of Jennifer Cornett? I don't know. But it sounds like this bitch had all the building blocks. She had the sleep deprivation, the food deprivation. She made them work their ass off, live in dire conditions, and then tricked them into thinking that that's what they wanted.
Right.
And that's a true cult leader.
It is.
And so as much as I like to make fun of Final Fantasy VII and everything, I do feel bad for the victims in hand here, because that one girl fucking $100,000?
Hoo-wee.
And then you made her a stripper?
Do you know what I could do with $100,000?
Girl, I bet you could find some cool stuff.
Yeah, not be a stripper.
Not be a stripper. That's for sure. I could start by buying me a dinghy. Calling.
I'd be that much closer to my yacht.
So close.
So close.
We could just start out, if we had $100,000, we can get our nap van.
Yes.
We could really deck it out like a Pimp My Ride.
Yeah, and as Jennifer advertisement, you want to take a nap, come get in our van. Sure would be a huge seller.
You want some candy, little boy? Well, that's the story of the Final Fantasy VII cult.
Interesting. Learned way more information than I ever wanted to know.
That's me. I was writing it and I got to like 3 pages and I was like, Jimmy, I have not even gotten close to talking about the cult yet. And at one point I had to stop talking about that shit so I could go talk about the cult, so then I could come back and write down what I really needed. I literally tried to keep it only to shit that would help make the story make sense. And that was still a lot.
There's still a lot.
So thank you for, you know what? You waited it through. I'm proud of you.
You're the real survivor.
I'm a survivor. I'm not gonna give up. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat. Check out our merch. What are your own too close to home stories? Yes, JJ. And so until next time,
stay safe.
Keep your head on a swivel.
And don't bring it so close to home that you let someone spend your $100,000.
If they say that my cleaning it's glitter and essential oils,
run.
Walk away. Get out of there.
Get on.
It's a cult.
Get out of here.
Get
on now.
Get on now.
Get.
Bye. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode of Too Close to Home, don't forget to rate and subscribe to us on most platforms. Follow us on our social media at Too Close Home Pod on Facebook, at Too Close Podcast on Instagram, or if you have your own Too Close to Home experience, shoot us your story at tooclosetohome@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening.